Hidden in the curves of ancient carvings and woven into the fabric of civilizations long gone, sacred symbols have whispered secrets across millennia. These aren't just marks on stone or ink on parchment. They're keys to forgotten worlds, portals to the divine, and mirrors reflecting humanity's deepest hopes and fears. Imagine standing before the towering gates of an Egyptian temple, your fingertips tracing the Eye of Horus, or kneeling in a dimly lit medieval chapel as the fleur de lis gleams in candlelight. These symbols carried the weight of empires, the prayers of millions, and the mysteries of cosmos. They were feared, worshipped, and sometimes forbidden because those who understood their power knew they could shape destiny itself. Today, we're uncovering 25 of these extraordinary legends, each one a thread in the vast tapestry of human belief. From the serpent swallowing its tail in the Ouroboros, symbolizing eternity in a single, perfect loop, to the triple spiral of the Celtic Triskelion, hinting at realms beyond our sight, these icons are more than art. They're living stories. Some were carved by hands that trembled with reverence, others were etched in defiance, hidden from rulers who sought to erase them. And behind each one lies a tale of miracles, curses, or cosmic truth so profound they've echoed through centuries. What if I told you that a single symbol could start a war or heal a nation? That hidden within these shapes are codes left by ancient priests, messages meant only for the initiated. This journey isn't just about history, it's about rediscovering the magic that still lingers in these forms. Whether you're drawn to the mystical allure of the lotus in Eastern traditions or the unsettling power of the Viking helm of ore, there's a legend here that will speak to you. So let's step into the shadows together, where symbols breathe and legends wake. The past is waiting to share its secrets if you're ready to listen. Of all the sacred symbols passed down through the ages, few hold the weight of the Ankh, a single, elegant loop cradled by a cross. This was no mere decoration in ancient Egypt. It pulsed with meaning, cradling the very essence of life itself. Picture a pharaoh clutching it in their stone-carved hands, or a priest raising it above the crowds during sacred rites. The Ankh wasn't just a symbol, it was a bridge between worlds, a key whispered to unlock both mortal existence and the afterlife. Its origins stretch back to Egypt's earliest dynasties, where it was often placed in the hands of gods and goddesses like Isis and Osiris. Isis, the Divine Mother, wielded it as a promise of resurrection, her magic stitching the broken pieces of Osiris back together, the Ankh restoring what death had stolen. In temple murals, deities press it against the lips of pharaohs, gifting them the breath of life. Artifacts reveal its presence everywhere, from burial chambers to palace walls, because this was a symbol that couldn't be confined to one moment or meaning. It was life, yes, but also eternity, protection, and the unbreakable bond between heaven and earth. Even now, its power lingers. The Ankh slipped into modern pop culture like a traveler from another time. It's been spotted in films about ancient curses, etched into jewelry as a talisman of strength, even splashed across fashion runways. Yet beneath today's trend lies something deeper, an echo of the old belief that certain shapes hold magic. When someone wears an Ankh today, whether they realize it or not, they're threading themselves into a story thousands of years in the making. What makes this symbol so timeless? Perhaps it's the simplicity of its design, how a single curve can hold so much hope. Or maybe it's the unshakable human longing it represents, the desire for life to mean more than just the span of years. The Ankh doesn't answer these questions, it invites us to ask them, and in a world still hungry for meaning, that might be the greatest magic of all. Before words shaped prayers or chants filled temples, there was a sound, one so profound it was said to contain all creation. The single syllable that hums at the heart of Hinduism, vibrating through time like a never-ending echo. Close your eyes for a moment and try to hear it, a low, resonant tone rising from the silence, stretching into infinity. This isn't just a mantra, It's the cosmic blueprint, the primal pulse that birthed stars and souls alike. Ancient texts like the Upanishads describe Om as the very breath of the universe, the sound that existed before light, before gods, before time itself. It's woven into the Rig Veda, whispered in Buddhist monasteries, and chanted in yoga studios from Mumbai to Manhattan. But why does this symbol, a simple curve cradling a crescent and dot, hold such power? The answer lies in its layers. The three parts of Om, A, U, M mirror the states of consciousness, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, while the silent fourth element, the untouchable space beyond the symbol, represents pure transcendence. Meditators have leaned on Om for centuries, letting its vibrations steady their minds and unknot their thoughts. It's said that chanting Om aligns the body with the rhythm of existence, syncing the heartbeat to the universe's own cadence. Temples carve it into doorways, monks paint it on prayer flags. Even modern science has studied its effects, noting how the vibration can lower stress and slow breathing. But Om's journey didn't stop at religion. It slipped into global culture, becoming shorthand for peace, mindfulness, a connection to something greater. You'll find it on jewelry, album covers, even tattooed onto skin, each time carrying a fragment of that ancient resonance. Yet Om is more than a trend. It's a living artifact, a thread tying today's seekers to the sages of old. When someone traces its shape or voices its sound, they're not just repeating a word. They're tapping into a frequency older than civilization, one that still hums beneath the noise of the modern world. And in that hum, there's an invitation to listen, to slow down, to remember that some truths don't need words, just a single sacred sound. No instrument of death has transformed so completely as the cross, a brutal Roman tool turned universal emblem of faith. What began as a terror device lining the roads to Jerusalem became, over centuries, the most recognized shape in human history. But this metamorphosis wasn't instant. Early Christians facing persecution often hid the cross in coded forms, a ship's mast or an anchor's curve, until Constantine's vision before battle in the 4th century. Legend claims he saw a cross of light with the words, "By this sign conquer." Overnight, the symbol of shame became a banner of triumph, emblazoned on shields and carved into the arches of empire. The cross didn't just spread, it evolved. In Ireland, monks fused it with the pagan sun wheel, creating the Celtic cross, its circle whispering of eternity, its arms stretching toward the 4 directions. Gothic cathedrals later stretched it skyward, spires piercing clouds as if to ladder heaven itself. Eastern Orthodoxy favored the 3-barred cross, where the slanted footrest symbolized the thief's redemption beside Christ. Every variation carried layers of meaning, the crucifix's agonized corpus reminding believers of sacrifice, while the empty Protestant cross declared victory over death. Artists and architects turned the cross into a language. Byzantine mosaics gilded it with gold tesserae. Renaissance painters draped mourners beneath its shadow. In Mexico, indigenous converts wove it into Day of the Dead altars, blending traditions. Today, it hangs above altars, dangles from necklaces, even lights up Times Square, not just as doctrine, but as a canvas for personal devotion. A soldier fingers a pocket-sized cross before battle. A nurse pins one to her scrubs. Graffiti artists spray its outline on city walls as a silent protest. The cross's power lies in its duality. It's both historical artifact and living metaphor, a reminder that hope can rewrite even humanity's darkest tools. Whether etched into ancient catacombs or glowing on smartphone lock screens, it asks the same question: can suffering transform into meaning? 2,000 years later, the answer still hangs in the balance. No symbol captures the dance of existence quite like the Yin-Yang, that swirling teardrop of black and white, each cradling a seed of its opposite. This isn't just a design, it's a map of reality itself. Rooted in Taoist philosophy over 2,000 years ago, the Yin-Yang whispers a truth both simple and profound. Light cannot exist without dark, strength without softness, fire without water. The ancient text Tao Te Ching puts it plainly: when people see some things as beautiful, other things become ugly. When people see some things as good, other things become bad. The Yin-Yang rejects these divisions. It's not about choosing sides, but recognizing how they complete each other. Walk through a traditional Chinese medicine clinic and you'll feel the Yin-Yang's pulse. Practitioners diagnose illness as imbalance, too much fiery Yang energy causing inflammation, or excessive cooling Yin leading to fatigue. Herbs, acupuncture, even dietary choices aim to restore harmony between these forces. A ginseng root might stoke fading Yang, while chrysanthemum tea cools overheated Yin. Martial arts like Tai Chi embody this principle too: fluid movements, balancing explosive power with yielding grace, a physical meditation on the symbol's wisdom. Yet the Yin-Yang's reach stretches far beyond temples and dojos. Modern designers pluck it from its spiritual roots, bending it to new purposes. A tech startup's logo might use the Yin-Yang to symbolize innovation and tradition working in tandem. Environmentalists adopt it to represent humanity's interplay with nature. Even psychologists reference it when discussing the integration of conscious and unconscious mind. But here's the twist: the more the symbol spreads, the more its depth risks being diluted. The original Taoist Yin-Yang wasn't about peaceful coexistence. It was about dynamic tension, the necessary friction that fuels change. Perhaps that's why the Yin-Yang endures. In a world obsessed with binaries, right versus wrong, winner versus loser, it offers a third path, not compromise but completion. The next time you see those intertwined curves, look closer. Notice how the black swirls into the white, how the boundaries blur. That's not a flaw, it's the whole point. The universe doesn't deal in absolutes, and neither this ancient symbol reminds us, should we? Two triangles, one pointing skyward, the other grounded, locked together in perfect symmetry. The Star of David seems like it's always been the heart of Jewish identity, but its journey to prominence is far more tangled than most realize. This six-pointed star wasn't always exclusively Jewish. Archaeologists have found it decorating Bronze Age pottery in Italy, etched into Islamic mosaics, even adorning medieval churches as the Seal of Solomon. Some theories trace its earliest Jewish ties to the shield of King David, not as a literal emblem, but as a later legend woven by rabbis imagining their warrior king's divine protection. Kabbalists in the Middle Ages saw deeper magic in its geometry. To them, the interlocked triangles represented the interplay between heaven and earth, the divine and the mortal. The upward point symbolized aspiration toward God, while the downward one signaled grace flowing back to humanity. Mystics meditated on its lines, believing they could unlock hidden dimensions of the Torah. Yet for centuries it remained just one symbol among many, until tragedy forged it into a banner. The Holocaust irrevocably changed the star's meaning. What Nazis forced Jews to wear as a badge of shame became, after liberation, a defiant declaration of survival. When Israel's flag was designed in 1948, the star took center stage, blue on white, echoing the stripes of a prayer shawl. Now it wasn't just a spiritual symbol, it was a national identity stamped on passports, embroidered on military uniforms, glowing atop Tel Aviv skyscrapers. But controversy lingers. Some Orthodox groups reject it as too modern, favoring the menorah's ancient light. Others see it as a political flashpoint, its meaning contested in protests and debates. Yet for millions, those 6 points still hold a quiet power, a geometry of resilience, a shape that says, "We are here." Whether traced in the air during prayer or worn as a necklace, the Star of David continues its slow, shimmering evolution, from ancient artifact to living testament. The three arms curve outward like ripples in a rushing stream. The Triskelion spins with relentless motion. This ancient Celtic symbol, carved into stone passage tombs and etched onto warrior shields, wasn't just decoration. It captured a truth these tribes lived by, that life isn't a straight path but a spiral always advancing, even when it seems to circle back. Each of its 3 legs mirrors the Celtic reverence for triads, land, sea, and sky, past, present, future, the triple goddess of maiden, mother, and crone. On the battlefield, it adorned armor as a talisman, urging warriors forward through struggle, reminding them that every ending feeds a new beginning. Far to the north, where icy winds howled through Viking longhouses, another symbol pulsed with darker power, the Valknut. 3 interlocking triangles, stark as a raven's cry, marked this as Odin's territory. Legends say the Allfather used magic to carve it into the world tree Yggdrasil, binding the fates of fallen warriors. When a Norse chieftain died, this symbol often guarded their grave, a beacon for Valkyries to carry their soul to Valhalla. Unlike the Triskelion's fluid motion, the Valknut's angles are sharp, deliberate. It doesn't promise progress, it demands sacrifice. To where it was to stare into the wolf's maw and laugh, declaring allegiance to a god who hanged himself from the world tree for wisdom. These symbols may seem worlds apart, one a dance of continuity, the other a knot of fatalism, but they share a warrior's heartbeat. The Triskelion's triple spiral inspired Celts to rise after defeat, seeing cycles where others saw dead ends. Meanwhile, the Valknut's wearers embraced their mortality, charging into battle hoping to catch Odin's eye. Both cultures carved these emblems into standing stones, both whispered their names in rituals, yet their philosophies diverged like branches splitting from a trunk. The Celts sought harmony with nature's rhythms, the Norse defied fate itself. Today, these symbols have slipped free of their origins. The Triskelion decorates modern Celtic pride jewelry, its spirals repurposed as a logo for Sicilian independence. The Valknut, adopted by metal bands and tattoo enthusiasts, sometimes carries unfortunate baggage, misused by groups blind to its sacred roots, but when you peel back the layers, both still pulse with their old power. One reminds us that growth isn't linear, the other that courage means facing ends unflinching. 2 paths carved by ancient hands, both whispering the same question: how will you meet your storm? Emerging unstained from murky waters, the lotus flower carries a paradox at its heart. The deeper the mud, the more radiant its bloom. Buddhist scriptures tell how the young Prince Siddhartha, before becoming the Buddha, first glimpsed these flowers floating in a palace pond. Their roots buried in darkness, yet their petals open to the sun, became his living metaphor for enlightenment. The lotus doesn't escape the filth, it transforms it. This is why you'll find it cradling deities in temple art. The Buddha seated serenely atop its petals, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara holding one like a torch against suffering. Mandalas spin the lotus into sacred geometry. In Nepal's monasteries, monks painstakingly arrange colored sands into intricate wheel-shaped designs, always starting from the lotus center. Each petal represents a step on the eightfold path, unfolding outward toward wisdom. Tibetan Thangka paintings use it as a throne for enlightened beings, their feet never touching the ground, a reminder that true understanding lifts you above illusion. Even the Dalai Lama's teachings often return to the lotus, urging followers to see life's challenges as the very nutrients that fuel spiritual growth. But the lotus transcends religion. India stamped it on their national flag in 1947, its saffron petals mirroring the dawn of independence rising from colonial oppression. Vietnamese folk tales weave it into love stories where separated lovers reunite as lotuses on the same stem. Modern psychologists borrow its imagery too, using it as a symbol of post-traumatic growth, the idea that people can emerge from trauma with greater resilience, just as the lotus turns pond sludge into beauty. Yet the lotus holds a quiet warning: pluck one from the water and you'll find its stem hollow, a lesson against attachment. The flower thrives precisely because it doesn't cling. Perhaps that's the deepest teaching hidden in those silken petals, that purity isn't the absence of darkness, but the courage to rise through it without carrying the mud along. Staring out from ancient temple walls with an unblinking gaze, the Eye of Horus isn't just a symbol, it's a sentinel. Born from one of Egypt's most dramatic myths, this iconic wedge-at eye traces its power to a battle between gods. When Seth murdered Osiris, scattering his body across the Nile, it was Horus who sought vengeance. Their cosmic duel cost the falcon god his left eye, torn out by Seth's ruthless hand. But this wasn't just a wound, it became a crucible. The god Thoth restored the eye through magic, transforming it into an amulet of protection, healing, and royal authority. Pharaohs painted it on coffins to guide souls through the underworld, sailors daubed it on prow boards to calm stormy seas, and mothers tucked tiny eye carvings into children's cradles to ward off nightmares. What's startling is how the Egyptians encoded divine wisdom into its curves. That teardrop-shaped marking beneath the eye, it's not just decoration, it's mathematics in sacred disguise. Priests used the eye's 6 parts as a fraction system, each segment representing a unit summing to 64/64. The brow stood for 1/8, the pupil 1/4, and so on, creating a blueprint for measuring everything from grain rations to temple dimensions. This wasn't superstition, it was spiritual precision, merging faith with function in a way that still leaves modern scholars marveling. Fast forward 3,000 years and the eye's watchful presence hasn't dimmed. You'll spot it gleaming from gold pendants in Cairo's markets, inked onto skin as tattoos claiming inner strength, even laser cut into sleek modern pendants worn by CEOs who have never set foot in the desert. Designers riff on its shape, sometimes stylized into abstract elegance, other times reproduced with hieroglyphic accuracy. Psychologists might say its endurance taps into something primal, the human need to feel shielded by unseen forces. But perhaps its true magic lies in duality. The Eye of Horus isn't passive protection, it's vigilant. It doesn't just deflect harm, it sees through chaos. And in a world that still feels unpredictable, that's a promise as compelling now as it was when the Nile first carved its path through the sand. 5 straight lines connected with mathematical precision. The pentagram is geometry made sacred. Long before Hollywood draped it in shadows, this 5-pointed star was a farmer's almanac in the sky. Ancient Babylonians charted Venus's celestial path with it, watching as the planet traced this shape every 8 years. Pythagoras saw divine harmony in its ratios, calling it the symbol of health and vitality. Even medieval knights wore it as the seal of Solomon, believing its unbroken lines could bind demons. But somewhere along the way, the pentagram story split like light through a prism into 2 starkly different tales. In one tradition, it's a shield. Modern Wiccans trace the star's points to the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. Drawing it in the air during rituals, they envision its lines creating an unbreakable barrier against negative energy. The upright pentagram with a single point reaching skyward represents spirit reigning over matter, a celebration of balance. You'll find it woven into pagan wedding vows, stitched onto ceremonial robes, even planted in herb gardens as a blessing for growth. For these practitioners, it's no different than a Christian cross or Jewish menorah, a sacred shape whispering of unity between the cosmos and the self. But pop culture twisted the narrative. When 19th century occultists like Eliphas Levi flipped the star upside down, placing 2 points upward like horns, they tapped into centuries of fear. Suddenly, the pentagram became shorthand for rebellion, dark magic, even devil worship. Horror films amplified the distortion, slapping inverted stars onto haunted house walls and demonic summoning circles. The irony, that satanic version was mostly theatrical flourish, a mishmash of misunderstood medieval grimoires and Victorian sensationalism. Yet the stigma stuck, turning a farmer's star into a Halloween prop. Here's where geometry defies superstition. Mathematicians call the pentagram a golden figure, its lines intersecting at angles that mirror the golden ratio, the same proportions found in seashells and galaxies. Artists from Da Vinci to Dürer sketched it as a study in perfection. Nature itself seems partial to fives. Apple cores sliced open reveal a star, roses unfold in pentagonal symmetry. Maybe that's the pentagram's quiet rebellion. It refuses to be boxed into a single meaning. It can be a witch's compass, a mathematician's muse, or just a child's first drawn star glowing fridge magnet bright. The next time you see those 5 lines, whether etched into an ancient amulet or spray painted on a subway wall, pause. Remember that symbols don't carry inherent evil or grace, only the power we assign them. And perhaps that's the real magic, the chance to choose which story we tell. Open your hand wide, fingers stretched, palm facing outward, and you're halfway to understanding the hamsa's ancient power. This stylized hand, often cradling an eye at its center, has been a shield against misfortune for thousands of years. In the sun-baked markets of Marrakech, you'll find it wrought in silver above doorways. In Jerusalem, it dangles from rearview mirrors on taxis barreling through narrow streets. What's fascinating is how fluidly it moves between faiths. Jewish tradition calls it the hand of Miriam, Moses' sister, a nod to divine protection during biblical Exodus. Muslims name it the hand of Fatima, honoring the Prophet Muhammad's daughter, its 5 fingers echoing Islam's pillars. Even Berber tribes wove it into henna designs long before monotheism's rise, proof that some symbols outlast the gods we assign them. The hamsa thrives because it speaks a universal language, not of doctrine but of human vulnerability. That eye embedded in its palm, that's where it locks arms with another legend, the malevolent gaze we call the evil eye. From Greek fishermen painting blue circles on boats to Italian grandmothers pinning cornicolo charms on babies, this fear transcends borders. The premise is simple yet chilling. Envy, even unintentional, can manifest as curses, failed crops, sudden illness, crumbling relationships. Ancient Roman texts describe rituals to deflect it. Turkish bazaars still sell nazar boncuk, those glass amulets of concentric blue and white like frozen ripples in a pond. Modernity hasn't dulled these symbols, it's remixed them. Celebrities flaunt hamsa tattoos alongside Sanskrit mantras. Evil eye emojis plague Instagram captions. But scroll through TikTok's spiritual corners and you'll find Gen Z witches swapping warding sprays to block envy's digital gaze. The tools change, sage bundles replaced by smartphone wallpapers, but the anxiety remains. Perhaps that's why these talismans persist. They give shape to our oldest fear, that someone else's resentment could unravel our luck. Yet there's a twist. The hamsa and evil eye don't just repel harm, they reveal something raw about human nature. One offers shelter, the other names the storm. Together, they whisper a truth as old as civilization, that we're all just trying to guard our fragile light from the world's hungry shadows. 2 snakes twine around a winged staff. This image, known as the caduceus, hangs in doctors' offices and hospital logos worldwide. But here's the twist, it's the wrong symbol. The true emblem of healing belongs not to Hermes, the swift-footed messenger god who carried this staff, but to his lesser-known counterpart, Asclepius, the divine physician. His rod, a single serpent coiled around rough-hewn wood, holds the deeper story. The mix-up began with a bureaucratic blunder. In the early 1900s, the U.S. Army Medical Corps accidentally adopted the caduceus as its insignia, likely confusing it with Asclepius's rod. The irony, Hermes' staff was never about healing. In Greek myths, it was a tool for guiding souls to the underworld or negotiating commerce, fitting for a trickster god who prized speed over solace. Meanwhile, Asclepius's serpent-entwined rod spoke directly to medicine's heart. Legend says he learned the art of resurrection by watching one serpent revive another with sacred herbs, a moment frozen in that solitary coil. Ancient hospitals called Asclepions bore this symbol at their entrances where patients slept, hoping the god would visit their dreams with cures. Modern medicine clings to this era, Walk through any medical district and you'll spot the caduceus on pharmacy signs, ambulances, even academic crests. Only about 5% of professional organizations correctly use Asclepius's rod, like the World Health Organization, which honors the older, quieter legacy. The serpent itself holds meaning, shedding skin as a metaphor for renewal, its venom capable of both killing and curing. Perhaps the confusion persists because both symbols share a visual rhythm. But their messages diverge sharply. One heralds transactions, the other transformation. Next time you pass a medical logo, look closer. That lone serpent on Asclepius's rod isn't just a design. It's a 3,000-year-old reminder that healing requires patience, not haste, and that true medicine has always been about depth, not delivery. Long before hatred twisted its shape, the swastika pulsed with the rhythm of the sun. This ancient emblem, whose name comes from the Sanskrit svastika meaning well-being or good fortune, spanned continents and cultures for millennia. In the temples of India, it adorned altars as a symbol of Vishnu's cosmic motion. Buddhist pilgrims traced its arms in sand, representing the Buddha's footprints. The Navajo wove it into blankets as a token of harmony, while Finnish women stitched it onto wedding garments to invoke blessings. Even early Coca-Cola ads featured it as a lucky charm before the 20th century tore its meaning apart. The swastika's geometry is deceptively simple, a cross with arms bent at 90 degrees, spinning either clockwise or counterclockwise. In Hinduism, the right-facing version, swastika, signifies the sun's journey and divine order, while the left-facing svastika links to mystical twilight realms. Jain temples depict it with 4 dots, symbolizing the 4 possible paths to enlightenment. From Greece to Japan, it appeared on pottery, coins, and door frames, a silent guardian against misfortune. Archaeologists have unearthed it in Troy's ruins and on Celtic artifacts, proving its reach wasn't just spiritual but universal. Then came the theft. In the 1920s, a fractured Germany sought symbols of imagined purity. The Nazi Party scavenged history, grafting the swastika onto their red and white banners, turning a sacred glyph into a weapon. They didn't just adopt it, they inverted its essence. Where Hindus saw creation's wheel, Nazis stamped annihilation's brand. The horror of the Holocaust seared their version into global memory, leaving survivors trembling at a shape their ancestors once revered. Yet resilience flickers in the shadows. Across Asia, the swastika still marks temple doorways and festival suites. In Delhi, activists wear it on T-shirts emblazoned with original peace symbol. Buddhist monks in Sri Lanka gently explain its pre-war meaning to shocked Western visitors. Even some Jewish scholars, like the late Dr. Stephen Heller, have argued for understanding its dual history, not to erase atrocity, but to deny bigots a monopoly over sacred geometry. Reclamation is slow, fraught work. Many argue the damage is irreversible. Others insist surrender lets hate win twice. Perhaps the swastika's deepest lesson is this: no symbol is born evil. It's we who pour meaning into lines and curves, who choose whether to sanctify or desecrate. And somewhere beneath layers of pain, the old sun wheel still turns, waiting like dawn for the night to pass. Roots plunging into darkness, branches stretching toward the heavens, the tree of life isn't just a symbol. It's a mirror reflecting humanity's oldest yearning to make sense of existence. Across continents and centuries, cultures that never met somehow reached for the same image to explain creation itself. In the mystical tradition of Kabbalah, it's the Etz Chaim, a radiant diagram of 10 spheres called Sephirot, pulsing with divine energy. Each node represents an attribute of God, from wisdom at the crown to kingdom at the roots, connected by 22 paths corresponding to Hebrew letters. Medieval Kabbalists meditated on this intricate map, believing its branches held the blueprints of the universe. To trace its lines was to glimpse the hidden mechanics of reality, where every leaf trembled with sacred geometry. Now travel north to the frozen realms where Norse warriors whispered of Yggdrasil, the world ash. this wasn't a gentle symbol but a living, suffering entity. Its roots drilled into 3 wells, one bubbling with wisdom, one churning with primal chaos, and one veiled in icy mist where the dragon Nidhogg gnawed ceaselessly at its core. Squirrels scampered up its trunk carrying insults between eagles and serpents, while its leaves sheltered entire worlds, Asgard's golden halls in the branches, Midgard's mortal realm nestled in the boughs. Unlike Kabbalah's orderly tree, Yggdrasil thrived on chaos, its vitality springing from perpetual struggle. To the Vikings, life wasn't about escaping conflict but weathering it, just as the great tree stood firm despite the creatures tearing at its flesh. Then there are the Celts, for whom trees were living temples. Their sacred oaks bore no elaborate diagrams or cosmic serpents, just quiet, towering presence. Druids performed rites in groves where every rustling leaf was a divine whisper. The Celtic tree of life, often depicted with interwoven branches and roots forming a circle, spoke of cyclical time. No beginning, no end, only the endless exchange between above and below. What made their vision unique was its earthiness. This wasn't a ladder to climb toward the gods, but a reminder that heaven and earth were already married in the trunk's sturdy embrace. Modern science echoes these ancient intuitions. Biologists map phylogenetic trees showing how all life branches from a common ancestor, while mycorrhizal networks reveal how forest trees communicate through fungal threads, a literal web of connection beneath our feet. Psychologist Carl Jung saw the tree of life as an archetype of the human psyche, roots buried in the unconscious mind, flowering into conscious thought. Even family trees borrow the metaphor, charting how generations intertwine like rings within the same trunk. Perhaps these disparate traditions converge because the tree is the perfect teacher. It demonstrates resilience without rigidity, bending in storms but rarely breaking. It shows how decay nourishes new growth, how solitude, like a single oak in a field, can radiate strength. Most of all, it insists on connection. Just as roots need soil and leaves need light, the tree of life reminds us that nothing truly stands alone. Whether carved into Viking shields, inked onto Kabbalistic parchments, or tattooed onto a biologist's forearm, its message endures. To be alive is to be rooted in something greater. From the ashes of its own destruction, the phoenix rises unscathed, renewed, radiant. This mythical bird, cloaked in flames of gold and crimson, appears in Egyptian temple texts as the Bennu, a heron-like creature linked to the Nile's flooding cycles and the sun god Ra's daily rebirth. By the time Greek historians like Herodotus recorded it, the phoenix had grown wings of legend, said to live 500 years before building a fragrant nest of myrrh and cinnamon, then setting itself ablaze. But here's what most miss: the phoenix wasn't just about resurrection. Its cyclical rebirth mirrored the ancient world's deepest obsessions, the rhythm of seasons, the promise of justice returning after chaos, even the alchemist's dream of turning base metals into gold. Now picture another loop, this one not of fire but of scales. The Ouroboros, that serpent swallowing its own tail, first coiled into history in Egyptian funerary texts around 1400 BC. Gnostic mystics saw it as the boundary of the cosmos. Alchemists like Zosimos of Panopolis inked it into manuscripts as the emblem of eternal return. Its message was stark yet hopeful: endings feed beginnings. The serpent's act wasn't self-destruction but self-sustenance, a perfect closed circuit where last bites first and first births last. Alchemy wove these symbols together. Medieval labs in Prague and Alexandria scratched the Ouroboros onto flasks, believing it captured the prima materia, the primal substance underlying all matter. The phoenix, meanwhile, symbolized the rubedo stage, where base lead finally transformed into gold. Both were metaphors for the alchemist's own journey, burning away ignorance like the phoenix's pyre, cycling through failures like the Ouroboros until enlightenment dawned. Modern storytellers couldn't resist their pull. J. K, Rowling draped Fox the Phoenix in healing tears and loyalty, while the Ouroboros slithered into Fullmetal Alchemist as the price of forbidden knowledge. Even scientists borrow the imagery. DNA's double helix echoes the serpent's loop, and astrophysicists speak of phoenix galaxies reborn from collisions. Perhaps their endurance lies in a truth deeper than myth. Both symbols reject finality. The phoenix whispers that even in flames there's renewal. The Ouroboros hums that every ending is just the beginning curled back on itself. Together, they offer a radical hope that destruction isn't the opposite of creation, it's its cocoon. A circle within a square, within another circle, infinitely repeating patterns that pull the eye inward like a cosmic whirlpool. The mandala isn't just art, it's a portal. In Sanskrit, the word literally means circle, but for Tibetan monks who spend weeks pouring colored sands into intricate designs, it's a living meditation. Grain by grain, they build entire universes, mountains, palaces, deities, all contained within precise geometry. The process is as important as the product. Chanting fills the air as monks bend over their work, each granule placed with intention, each hue chosen for its sacred resonance, blue for wisdom, white for space, red for life force. But here's the twist. Once completed, these painstakingly crafted worlds are swept away in a ceremonial dissolution. The sands are poured into flowing water, a visceral lesson in Buddhism's core truth, that nothing lasts and clinging to permanence is the root of suffering. Carl Jung saw something profound in these vanishing masterpieces. During a period of personal crisis, the psychologist began sketching his own mandalas daily, finding that the symmetrical designs mirrored his psyche's quest for balance. To Jung, the mandala became a symbol of wholeness, the self at the center, with all contradictions and chaos harmonized in the radiating patterns. His patients drew them too, often unconsciously reproducing the same geometries found in Tibetan temples or Navajo sand paintings. Jung called this the collective unconscious, suggesting that mandalas tap into something primal, a shared human language of the soul. Modern neuroscience lends credence to the mandala's power. Studies reveal that creating or even gazing at symmetrical patterns can lower stress hormones, slow breathing, and induce a meditative state. Art therapists use mandala coloring books to help trauma survivors process emotions non-verbally, while architects borrow their proportions to design spaces that feel inherently peaceful. Even video games like Journey and Monument Valley weave mandala-inspired levels, proving their hypnotic pull transcends culture and medium. Yet the mandala's deepest teaching lies in its ephemerality. Whether drawn in sand, sketched in a notebook, or visualized behind closed eyes, it reminds us that beauty and meaning aren't diminished by transience, they're amplified. Like a breath exhaled or a sunset fading, the mandala invites us to marvel at the moment before it dissolves, knowing the act of creation matters more than the artifact left behind. 3 arcs interlocked with mathematical grace, the triquetra looks simple until you realize its curves contain no true beginning or end. Long before this Celtic knot adorned Gothic grimoires or witchy TV shows, it pulsed through pre-Christian Europe as a tribute to triplicate goddesses. The Morrigan's triple aspects of raven, warrior, and sovereignty flashed in its loops. Brigid's flames as maiden, mother, and crone flickered in its braided symmetry. Early Celts carved it into standing stones not as mere decoration, but as a sacred equation, nature's cycles distilled into 3 flowing strokes. Then came Christianity's tide, and the triquetra, like so many pagan symbols, was baptized into new meaning. Monks copying illuminated manuscripts in Ireland's damp scriptoria saw potential in its threefold form. Here was the perfect visual sermon, a shape that could whisper of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit to convert still clinging to old ways. The Book of Kells, that masterpiece of 9th century artistry, wove the triquetra into its vellum pages beside crosses and evangelists. What's remarkable is how seamlessly it adapted. Unlike the violent erasure of other symbols, the triquetra endured by metaphor, its curves now representing divine unity rather than earthly cycles. Fast forward to the late 20th century, and this ancient knot got a Hollywood makeover. When the television series Charmed premiered in 1998, the triquetra became the Halliwell sisters' magical birthright, etched onto their book of shadows, glowing on their palms as they cast spells. Suddenly, metaphysical shops couldn't stock enough triquetra pendants. Neo-pagans reclaimed it as a feminist emblem, while New Agers layered it with meanings from quantum theory to sacred geometry. The same symbol that once graced druidic altars now dangled from teenagers' necks at shopping malls, proof that icons outlived their origins, yet beneath the trend lies something timeless. The triquetra's power stems from its refusal to be pinned down. Is it Christian, pagan, a pop culture talisman? The answer coils back on itself: yes, and yes, and yes again. Like all enduring symbols, it holds just enough mystery to let each generation find new magic in its endless dance. Whether inked onto skin as a badge of faith or laser cut into stainless steel as aesthetic flair, the triquetra reminds us that meaning isn't fixed, it spirals. Hanging above a child's bed or dangling from a car rearview mirror, the dreamcatcher's delicate web seems timeless, but its story is deeply rooted in the Ojibwe people. Known as a Sabakshin or spider, in their language, this sacred hoop wasn't just a craft project, it was a lifeline. Ojibwe elders say the first dreamcatcher came from Spider Woman, a spiritual figure who wove her protective silk to shield babies from Bawajaj Nagwagan, the nightmare spirits. The design was purposeful, a willow hoop symbolizing the circle of life, a woven net to trap bad dreams, and feathers acting as ladders to let good visions drift down to the sleeper. Each element was a prayer in physical form, often crafted with rituals passed through generations. Grandmothers would sing over the hoops as they bent them, infusing the fibers with intention. This wasn't decoration, it was a guardian. Yet somewhere along the way, the dreamcatcher's meaning got tangled. By the 1990s, it had become a global trend, mass-produced in factories, slapped onto t-shirts, even glitter-dusted in mall kiosks. The problem isn't admiration, it's erasure. When sacred symbols are stripped of context and sold as boho chic decor, their spiritual heartbeat fades. Imagine a stranger wearing your family heirlooms as costume jewelry, oblivious to their significance. That's the sting many native communities feel when they see dreamcatchers reduced to party decorations or music festival accessories. But there's a way to honor this tradition without harming it. Seek out authentic Ojibwe artists like those from the Red Lake Nation, where dreamcatchers originate, and purchase directly from them. Learn the stories behind the designs. Understand that eagle feathers aren't just aesthetics but sacred regalia with legal protections in the U.S. If you hang a dreamcatcher, treat it with the reverence it deserves. Smudge it with sage, place it where morning light can burn away trapped nightmares, and remember, it's more than an object. It's a piece of living resistance, a thread connecting past to present. The dreamcatcher's resilience is its own kind of poetry. Despite commercialization, the Ojibwe keep weaving, teaching their children the old ways. Some modern native artists even reclaim the symbol, embedding contemporary materials like copper wire or LED lights to bridge tradition and innovation. Their work whispers a vital truth: cultures aren't frozen in history, they breathe, adapt, and demand respect. So the next time you see those familiar hoops, look closer. Behind the web lies a challenge: to appreciate without appropriating, to admire without exploiting. The dreamcatcher still works its magic, but now it filters ignorance as well as dreams. Gleaming in the torchlight of ancient Minoan palaces, the Labrys wasn't just a weapon, it was a declaration. This double-bladed axe, its curved edges mirroring the horns of the sacred bull, ruled long before swords became symbols of masculine might. In Crete's labyrinthine halls, priestesses wielded Labrises in rituals celebrating the great goddess, their blades flashing like crescent moons. Frescoes show them held aloft by bare-breasted women dancing beneath olive trees, their power echoing in the very name of Knossos' central sanctuary, the House of the Double Axes. Unlike the brutal axes of later warlords, the Labrys was a tool of creation as much as destruction, cutting sacred herbs, shaping holy idols, even birthing civilizations. Its symmetry whispered of balance, a world where strength wasn't stolen but shared. Then came the fall. When Mycenaean invaders stormed Crete's shores around 1400 BC, they brought their sky gods and patriarchal orders. The Labrys was buried beneath myths of monstrous minotaurs, its true meaning twisted into something frightening, but symbols have a way of resurfacing. In the 1970s, feminist scholars dusting off Minoan artifacts recognized the Labrys for what it was: an emblem of a society where women weren't sidelined but central. Lesbian collectives adopted it as their icon, its twin blades representing sisterhood's unbreakable bond. Today, it's tattooed on forearms and stamped on protest signs, a silent challenge to histories written by conquerors. Meanwhile, another feminine symbol waxed and waned across cultures: the crescent moon. Artemis, Greek goddess of the wild, wore it as a diadem while racing through forests. Egyptian Isis crowned herself with its silver arc, its glow mirroring the Nile's life-giving floods. For the Celts, the moon was feminine not by accident but by design. Their calendar followed lunar cycles governed by priestesses. Even in traditions that marginalized women, the crescent retained its magic. Medieval midwives hung silver charms shaped like the waning moon to ease childbirth, while Ottoman sultans, despite ruling an empire of strict hierarchies, placed the crescent atop minarets as a nod to divine feminine wisdom. Modern movements have reclaimed these icons with ferocity. The Labrys and crescent now march together in feminist protests, their ancient power repurposed for new battles. Artists fuse them into jewelry where the axe's handle becomes a moon's curve. Tarot decks depict the high priestess holding both. What unites them isn't just their femininity, but their refusal to be passive. The Labrys' cuts, the crescent illuminates both demand action. They remind us that divinity isn't always gentle, that the sacred feminine can be as fierce as a blade's edge or as relentless as the tide. Perhaps their greatest lesson lies in their endurance. Buried, banned, or bastardized, these symbols waited centuries for their stories to be heard again. Now, when a woman wears a Labrys pendant or pins a crescent to her lapel, she's not just accessorizing, she's resurrecting a lineage, one that says power isn't borrowed. It's ancestral. Storms howl across the North Atlantic, waves swallowing ships whole, and in the heart of this chaos, an Icelandic farmer clutches a piece of parchment etched with a strange, angular star. Holly would have you believe this is the Vegvisir, some ancient Viking compass carved into weathered longships. The truth, it first appeared in an 1800s Icelandic manuscript called the Galdrabok, a collection of magical staves dreamed up long after the last dragon-prowed ship had sunk. That's right, this so-called Viking compass is about as authentically Norse as a plate of spaghetti. Yet the myth persists, fueled by TV shows depicting rugged Norsemen consulting the Vegvisir like some mystical GPS. What the Galdrabok actually describes is far more intriguing. A sigil for travelers lost in bad weather or fog, its 8 arms tipped with cryptic runic letters. Icelandic folklore brimmed with these Galdrastafir magical symbols scratched into skin or wood to cure ailments, curse enemies, or in this case, literally weather the storm. Unlike Thor's hammer or Odin's ravens, the Vegvisir wasn't about gods. It was practical magic for fishermen and shepherds staring down blizzards with nothing but hope and sheepskin. Fast forward to today, and you'll find the Vegvisir inked onto forearms from Reykjavik to Rio. Tattoo artists love its bold, geometric lines, while spiritual seekers embrace it as a charm against life's metaphorical storms. The irony, modern fans aren't entirely wrong to feel its pull. Icelandic magic wasn't mere superstition, it was a language of resilience. Each stave carried intention, a psychological anchor when the world turned hostile. When a backpacker tattoos the Vegvisir before a round-the-world trip, they're channeling the same desperate optimism as that 17th century farmer squinting through sleet. But symbols are shapeshifters. The Vegvisir's journey from obscure grimoire to Instagram trend reveals how easily history gets rewritten. Does it matter that Vikings never drew it? Maybe not. What matters is the human need it answers, the longing for a signpost when the path vanishes, whether you're battling North Sea gales or navigating a divorce. The Vegvisir's power never lay in its age, but in its stubborn refusal to let anyone stay lost. 8 spokes, 1 circle. No symbol captures Buddhism's heart like the Dharma wheel. Known as the Dharma chakra in Sanskrit, this ancient emblem first rolled into history atop pillars erected by Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BC. After the bloodshed of the Kalinga War left him shattered, Ashoka converted to Buddhism and ordered these stone monoliths planted across India, each crowned with 4 lions back to back and a chakra beneath their paws. But this wasn't just royal propaganda. The wheel's 8 spokes represented the eightfold path, the Buddha's prescription for liberation from suffering. Picture it, a physician's wheel of healing, each spoke a step toward enlightenment, from right view to right concentration. Unlike the harsh commandments of other traditions, these weren't rules but trainings, like spokes supporting a rim too fragile to stand alone. Zoom in on those spokes and you'll find a blueprint for mindful living. Right speech, not just avoiding lies but weaving words that heal. Right livelihood, rejecting trades that harm, whether butchering flesh or peddling weapons. The brilliance lies in their interdependence. You can't master right meditation without right effort. Ethical conduct sila stabilizes the mind for wisdom paninya, which deepens concentration samadhi. Modern psychologists echo this. Studies show ethical action reduces cognitive dissonance, clearing mental clutter for focus. Monks in Sri Lanka still trace the wheel's rim during metta meditation, visualizing its spin as the turning of karma itself. Now shift your gaze westward to the zodiac, another wheel, but with 12 divisions dictating fate rather than freedom. Both symbols map cosmic order, but where astrology's wheel locks souls into predetermined tracks, the Dharma chakra offers liberation through choice. Hindu chakras share the circular motif too, yet they're inward ladders of energy, while Buddhism's wheel rolls outward, transforming how we move through the world. Even the yin-yang's duality finds resolution here. The Dharma wheel includes suffering and its cessation in one inseparable whole. Today, the Dharma chakra spins beyond temples. It's woven into the Thai healthcare system's logo, symbolizing healing in body and mind. Activists paint it on banners, repurposing Ashoka's pacifist emblem for modern justice movements. And in a delicious irony, Delhi's national flag court ruled in 1990 that the Ashoka chakra on India's flag isn't religious but universal, proof that some symbols outgrow their origins. When you see that wheel, whether on a monk's robe or a mindfulness app icon, remember, it's not just a relic, it's an invitation to turn from ignorance to awareness, from reaction to response. And unlike wheels of fortune or fate, this one's motion starts with you. Beneath the chaos of existence, geometry holds the universe together, and no symbol proves this more vividly than the Sri Yantra. Imagine a precision so exact that its 9 interlocking triangles create 43 smaller triangles, all radiating from a central point called the bindu, the cosmic spark. This isn't just sacred art, it's a meticulously engineered map of reality itself. Hindu tantric texts describe it as the queen of yantras, a visual echo of the divine feminine energy, Shakti, dancing in perfect harmony with the masculine Shiva. The 4 upward-facing triangles represent his dynamic consciousness, while the 5 downward ones mirror her creative power, their intersections birthing the entire cosmos. To meditate upon this labyrinth isn't just contemplation. It's a journey inward, tracing the pathways from the outer material world to the innermost spark of pure awareness. Traditional practitioners still perform Sri Yantra puja with painstaking care. Using a fine stylus, they draw the design on plates of gold or copper, whispering mantras as each line materializes. The process can take days because a single misplaced angle is said to disrupt the yantra's energy. In temples across India, you'll find massive three-dimensional Sri Yantras, their tiers ascending like stairways to enlightenment. Devotees circumambulate them, believing that even physical proximity to the geometry can align one's spirit with universal balance. Modern neuroscientists might nod in recognition. Studies show that mandalas with their concentric patterns can synchronize brainwaves, inducing deep meditative states. The Sri Yantra takes this further, its fractal-like layers acting as a visual mantra, pulling the gaze and the mind inexorably toward the center. Then there's the irony of corporate adoption. In 2005, fast food chain Carl's Jr. plastered a distorted Sri Yantra across their ad campaigns, replacing sacred Sanskrit with slogans about burgers. The backlash was swift. Hindu leaders called it sacrilege. Scholars pointed out the absurdity of using a symbol of spiritual discipline to sell greasy indulgence. But this wasn't an isolated case. Tech startups slap yantras on logos promising disruptive energy, and fashion brands stitch them onto yoga pants as exotic decor. The tension here is palpable. Can sacred geometry retain its power when divorced from reverence? Perhaps the answer lies in the Sri Yantra's own design. Its triangles don't just intersect, they penetrate each other, suggesting that opposites aren't just balanced but inseparable. Maybe the symbol can withstand commercial trivialization because its true depth can't be diluted. After all, the bindu at its center remains unchanged, a silent reminder that beneath life's noise, there's still a point where everything connects. Some symbols don't need centuries to become sacred. They rocket into our collective consciousness with the speed of a hashtag or a protest chant. Take the peace sign, born not in ancient temples but in the tense climate of 1958 Britain. Designed by Gerald Holtham for nuclear disarmament marches, its simple lines, a circle with inverted semaphore letters for N and D, were meant to be reproduced with chalk on sidewalks or stitched onto backpacks. Yet within a decade, it morphed into something far bigger. Vietnam War protesters in the U.S. adopted it as their emblem. Musicians like John Lennon wore it like a talisman. Even Soviet youth scrawled it on walls as a silent rebellion. This wasn't just a logo. It became a global shorthand for hope, so potent that dictators banned it and churches debated whether it was pagan. The peace sign proves sacredness isn't about age, it's about what we're willing to bleed for. Then there's the biohazard symbol, dreamed up in a 1966 Dow Chemical Lab meeting. Scientists needed an image so viscerally frightening it would transcend language barriers. A warning that could halt someone mid-step before they touched a vial of smallpox. The result, those jagged orange tendrils like a triplicate scream. Today, it's escaped labs to become pop culture shorthand for contagion, slapped on apocalyptic video games and pandemic memes. But its power lingers in the real world too. When doctors in Ebola zones wear it on their suits, or when protesters during COVID-19 painted it on signs accusing governments of negligence. Unlike ancient symbols tied to gods, this one draws its sacred terror from science itself, a reminder that some modern dangers demand their own mythology. Few symbols have rewritten their meaning as dramatically as the rainbow. Once a biblical covenant or a Norse bridge to Asgard, its stripes were reclaimed by LGBTQ+ activists in 1978 when artist Gilbert Baker Hand dyed the first pride flag. Each color carried purpose: hot pink for sex, turquoise for magic, but the rainbow's genius was its universality. Unlike niche emblems, everyone already loved rainbows, they just needed to stretch their meaning. Today, that flag flies in places its creators never imagined. corporate boardrooms, embassy windows, even the jackets of astronauts. Opponents burn it like heresy, allies cling to it like salvation. Sacredness here isn't about divinity, but identity. The right to exist boldly in a world that once demanded silence. Now descend into the digital realm where memes mutate faster than medieval folk tales. The distracted boyfriend photo or "this is fine" dog aren't just jokes, they're modern hieroglyphs encoding complex emotions into a single shareable image. Like the hand gestures of secret societies, they signal belonging. Someone who recognizes Wojak or Pepe instantly knows they're among peers. Anonymous online forums treat them with near-religious fervor, crafting elaborate lore around characters like Loss or Trollface. And just as ancient symbols were co-opted by empires, memes get weaponized, Pepe vandalized by extremists, the OK hand gesture twisted into hate. The speed of their rise and fall mirrors how quickly modern tribes form and fracture. What unites these symbols, whether stitched onto flags or spammed in comment sections, is their ability to condense chaos into meaning. They don't wait for archaeologists to dig them up, they erupt from crises and subcultures, demanding immediate recognition. Some, like the peace sign, might endure for millennia. Others, like viral memes, may vanish by next year, but their lesson is clear: sacredness isn't bestowed by time. It's sparked by the moment we agree, consciously or not, that a shape can carry the weight of our fears, our hopes, or our fight to be seen. From the lotus blooming through murky waters to the Sri Yantra's precise geometry, these 25 sacred symbols reveal humanity's unshakable urge to carve meaning into the world. They've survived empires, outlasted languages, and slipped through the cracks of time, morphing from objects of worship to tattoos on skin, from temple engravings to smartphone wallpapers. What's astonishing isn't just their diversity, but their stubborn relevance. The Ankh's promise of eternal life still resonates in a culture obsessed with wellness, while the Ouroboros loop mirrors our modern understanding of regenerative science. The Valknut, once a Norse warrior's pledge to Odin, now pulses in heavy metal logos, its edges just as sharp as ever. Symbols don't retire, they evolve. Next time you walk through a city, look closer. That corporate logo, it might echo the Triskelion spiral of progress. The pendant on a stranger's neck could be a hamsa or a pentagram, same ancient protection, new aesthetic. Even the emoji keyboard holds ghosts of sacred geometry. The crescent moon of Artemis, the infinity loop that mirrors the Celtic knot. These shapes are more than history, they're conversation starters between generations. When a teenager doodles the tree of life in a sketchbook, they're unknowingly reaching across centuries to Kabbalists and Druids who saw the same branches in their dreams. But here's the real magic: these symbols invite participation. Which one speaks to you? Is it the unblinking eye of Horus offering its 3,000-year-old guard against chaos? Or the Dharma wheel spinning quietly on a meditation app? Drop your pick in the comments. We're all collectors of meaning, piecing together fragments of the past to navigate the present. And if you think these legends are powerful, wait until you hear their shadowed counterparts. Because for every symbol of light, there's one that's been twisted, feared, or forbidden. Coming soon, we'll unravel the dark allure of cursed symbols, from the hook cross's tragic hijacking to the sinister whispers behind the goat of men's. But that's a story for another night. For now, keep your eyes open. The world's oldest language isn't spoken, it's drawn, and it's everywhere.